Have you ever touched someone with your whole presence and realized you'd forgotten what that even felt like? He never rushed, not in battle, not in love, not even with age pressing against his back like a silent opponent. The old samurai, they say, could hear the sound of a single leaf falling in a distant courtyard. That's how quiet his mind had become, how still his body, how focused his breath. In a world obsessed with speed and power, the samurai practiced slowness like it was sacred. Stillness was their strength, not passivity, but presence. They understood that the deepest kind of power isn't loud or aggressive. It's quiet, rooted, intentional, and for centuries these men, warriors, and poets alike carried a different wisdom about aging, desire, and masculinity. In this story, we step back from modern noise, from pills and performance, from fear of fading. We go back to a wooden floor, a quiet tea house, a sword that hadn't been used in years, and a man who still knew how to touch with strength, with grace, and with nothing to prove. This is not just a lesson in intimacy, it's a meditation on what it means to age with dignity. And maybe, just maybe, it will remind you your power is not behind you. It's beneath you, waiting to be still. They say the first thing a samurai learned was not how to fight, but how to breathe. It sounds strange at first. You'd expect a warrior to start with weapons, footwork, strategy. But no, his first lesson was to sit in silence, to breathe in and out and in again, until the world outside the room disappeared and the world inside him finally spoke. It's easy to romanticize them now. The robes, the swords, the rigid posture in the middle of a misty field. But the real discipline of the samurai was internal. They spent more time in stillness than in war, more time mastering their own urges, fears, and hungers than mastering their blade. A man in his 50s once told me, "I can't feel myself anymore. It's like I'm numb to everything, food, sex, joy. I don't know if I'm tired or just done." He said it like a confession, half ashamed, half relieved to finally say it aloud. His voice cracked when he admitted, "Even when I want to connect with my wife, I just can't. I try, but my body doesn't answer. Or maybe my mind doesn't. I can't tell anymore." That kind of silence between body and mind, between husband and wife, is something the samurai would have understood. In traditional Japanese culture, particularly among samurai and monks, desire wasn't something to fear or conquer. It was something to contain, to channel, to understand. They called it seijaku, a kind of inner quiet, a peaceful readiness. In seijaku, a man could be fully alive without needing to dominate. He could feel desire without chasing it. He could hold intensity without losing control. The samurai did not run toward pleasure, nor did they avoid it. They waited. They moved like water, not forcing, not withholding. They were taught that strength was found in choosing when to act, not just how. Compare that to how most men are raised now. Many of us grew up believing our worth was tied to action, performance, virility. If something isn't working in the bedroom, fix it, force it, medicate it, hide it. But what if the problem isn't brokenness? What if the body is just asking to be listened to differently? In the Edo period, Japanese men practiced something called tanden breathing. It centered all attention in the lower abdomen, the hara considered the core of a man's energy. Before battle, before intimacy, before death. They would place both hands over that spot, breathe deeply, and wait. It was a reminder power comes from within, not from urgency, not from stimulation, but from rootedness, Groundedness. One old record from a 17th century scroll described a samurai in his 70s who still moved as if his blood were young. Not because of potions or elixirs, but because he never stopped treating his body like a sacred vessel, not a machine to be driven into the ground, but a temple to be understood and respected. He rose early. He stretched. He cooked his meals slowly. He spoke little. He had few partners, but touched them with great reverence. He had no need to impress, just a desire to be fully present. That presence, that quiet power, is what modern men are starving for. Not just more drive, more connection, but connection requires slowing down, feeling, waiting, like the samurai did. It is not weak to pause. It is not shameful to grow still. If anything, stillness is where your next strength begins. You are not a machine, brother. You are a man who may need to sit down in silence, breathe into the center of his belly, and remember that nothing is gone, only buried and waiting. There is an old Japanese saying, "The flame that burns steady outlasts the one that burns bright." That saying wasn't just about war. It was about love, about life, and about aging with dignity. The samurai understood something that many modern men forget, that your value isn't in your urgency, it's in your presence. The way you breathe when you're with someone, the way your eyes stay still, the way your hand rests not to possess, but to connect. In youth, many men mistake passion for pace, faster, harder, more. But with age comes an invitation to feel differently, to touch differently, to be differently. Stillness isn't the absence of power, it's the refinement of it. In certain Japanese households, especially among the more disciplined martial families, boys were taught not just to hold a sword, but to hold silence, to sit in meditation until their legs ached, not moving, not fidgeting, not reacting, just being. Why? Because if a man can sit with discomfort without fleeing it, he can also sit with intimacy without rushing it. If he can breathe through pain, he can also breathe through pleasure. If he can hold back his fury, he can also hold back his urgency and replace it with something deeper. This is the power that is often lost when we talk about performance. When we reduce connection to technique or testosterone, when we forget that intimacy, real intimacy, is more about presence than potency. In Japan, there are ancient practices, even spiritual ones, that treat sexual energy not as something shameful but sacred. In Taoist and Zen-influenced traditions, men were taught how to build, store, and circulate that energy through breath, stillness, and patience, not to conquer their partners, but to meet them fully, softly, entirely. There's a word they used, ma. Ma means the space between, the pause, the silence before a note is played, the breath between movements, the stillness between actions. In lovemaking too, ma mattered. Not constant motion, but presence in the pause. Trust in the stillness. Imagine that. Imagine touching without rushing, being with someone without reaching the end too quickly, breathing together slowly as if the moment could stretch into something eternal. There is no pill for that. There is only practice, awareness, breath. So many men I've spoken to in their 50s and 60s talk about feeling disconnected. Not just from their partners, but from themselves. Their bodies don't respond the way they used to. Their minds wander, their confidence falters. And what do we tell them? Fix it, perform, prove, push. But what if we told them instead, pause, listen, come home? What if sexual power after 50 isn't about reclaiming youth, but about rediscovering presence? What if everything you thought was lost isn't gone? Just quieter now, waiting like a still flame inside you, waiting for you to stop reaching outward and start returning inward. He was 68, widowed for 6 years. He told me he'd forgotten what it was like to be touched. Not just sexually touched, skin to skin, eye to eye, soul to soul. He'd built a life around responsibility, around getting things done. Children raised, business run, savings accounted for. But as the years slowed, so did his body. So did the invitations, the hunger, the ease. I didn't just lose my desire, he said. I lost the part of me that believed I deserved it. There was no diagnosis, no medicine for that kind of loss, just a quiet ache and an old memory. He told me about a trip to Kyoto when he was younger. He remembered standing in a temple garden sunlight, filtering through bamboo, a small koi pond in the middle. Everything was still. No music, no movement, just breath, earth, time. There was something sacred about that stillness, he said. I felt completely alive, and I wasn't doing anything at all. That's when I told him, maybe your body doesn't need to perform again. Maybe it needs to remember how to simply be. The samurai believed every man carried a garden inside him, a place of balance, of quiet fire, of grounded masculinity. But most men lose access to that garden. The noise of survival, of pressure, of shame, it chokes the gate. You forget the way in. Sexual health, real sexual health, is not just about erections or endurance. It's about connection with your own body, with your breath, with the space around you. It's about letting go of the need to be impressive and returning to what's true. Some of the samurai became poets in their old age. Their haiku didn't celebrate conquest. They spoke of rivers, of the wind, of a woman's hand resting in theirs like a fallen petal. There's a power in that kind of softness, a strength in that kind of surrender. One old warrior wrote, "Even the sword lays quiet in its sheath, cherry blossoms fall." He wasn't speaking of weakness, he was speaking of arrival, of peace, of knowing that to be fully present with another person, fully there was more intimate than any act of performance. That man I spoke to, the widower, he eventually met someone again. He didn't rush it. They sat, talked, walked. He learned to touch again, not out of hunger but presence. And when intimacy returned, it wasn't fireworks, it wasn't glory, it was breath, warmth, stillness. And he wept afterward, not because he'd done it, but because he felt whole again, connected, like a man, not a machine. That's what the samurai knew. That's what aging men deserve to remember. Not how to fight harder, but how to feel more fully, to move slower, to listen more deeply, to return quietly to the garden inside. So maybe the real secret of the samurai wasn't their sword, or their strength, or even their stillness. Maybe it was this. They never stopped listening to their own breath. They never stopped believing in the quiet kind of power. The kind that doesn't need to prove or chase or win. The kind that stays when everything else starts to fade. And maybe you, wherever you are, whatever age you are, still carry that power too. Not as a memory, not as something lost, but as something you can return to right now. With a single breath. You are not alone. You are not broken. You are simply being called back to yourself. If this story touched something in you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes your words help someone else feel less alone too. And if you'd like more stories like this, quiet, true, and made for you, please subscribe to the channel. We're just getting started. Until next time, be still, be kind to yourself. And remember, you haven't been forgotten. You're just beginning to be seen.